did you go overseas? Shortly after you got married?
We went in, let's see, October. We went in right a day or two after Thanksgiving. We boarded ship, and we went over on the Aquitania. There's 13,000 of us on it. We went through the North Sea, and it's so cold. We get up in the morning, we was on the top deck, and the water would freeze during the night, and we'd take picks, and they'd go with big old hammers and bust it, and we'd pick it and throw it overboard to lighten the load on top of the boat. But you talking about some horrible food. You eat some limey food for 13 days. They'd bring eggs out, boiled eggs in a tub, and they'd been boiled so long they'd be green. But they didn't make us sick.
So it took y'all 13 days to get to where?
Fiji Firtha, I believe is the way they pronounce it over there in England. There's a little port on the English coast. We was reported sunk 2 or 3 times. The Germans knew we was out there. We was by ourselves. We wasn't escorted because that ship was so fast. It could outrun most, anything that the Germans had if they had any idea where it was.
So you got to England. Tell me about your tour of duty. Take me through it.
We went in south of Bristol, between Bristol and Oxford. The British government had put up Nissen huts, just in round top 10 buildings, and we moved in there with all of our equipment. Our equipment followed us over there on freighter, and we got it all in. And I was a vehicle inspector, and me and a second lieutenant, we started at Dover and we went all the way up through Scotland, checking the other outfits, see if they was maintaining their equipment right. And if we found something wrong, well, we saw that it was maintained and compound over there. And we waterproofed vehicles where we could drive them underwater. We went up to Birmingham, England, and we worked on that about 6 to 8 weeks. And you could take one of those big trucks and drive it right off in the English Channel, and as long as the water didn't come up over the top of the steering wheel, you could drive it right on up on the bank. The Jeeps and that kind of stuff. And when we hit the beach, we drove out the vehicle right off the boat into the English Channel and drove them up on the beach. But most of my job when I was in England was vehicle inspector with a Lieutenant Gant. I'd be detached from my outfit. And there were some other people that did the same thing.
Tell me about your experience with D-Day.
Well, we sat on the boat out there in the channel and hoped one of them shells wouldn't hit us or something, or they would strafe us. They strafed us one time just before we got off the boat, but everybody bailed down inside of it, away from it.
What kind of boat was it?
It was an old English boat that they had done some work on, where you could load trucks and everything else on it. It was just a big old wreck.
So y'all were sitting out there while the actual invasion, as the infantry hit the beach, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, we went in behind the infantry, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, so what was that like? Were you sitting there watching that?
We could see part of it, yeah. There's so much smoke you couldn't see much of it. Those big old German guns, that once in a while you'd see one of them stick out the side of that cliff and fire. But we was out at an angle away from that. But
You couldn't see actually what was happening though, I guess, huh?
no, we couldn't actually see what was happening. Like I say, there was so much smoke and stuff that every once in a while you'd see a bunch of bodies float by after the second day. But you got to the point after a day or two that you just took that as part of it. And we drove in. They just float away from the vehicles, and you go on in. And they wasn't nothing good to look at, but we knew we had a job to do, and we had to do it.
So, I mean, you all came in the third day afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can you describe the scene to us? What was it really like?
Well, it was actually, by that third day, it was sort of quiet up on the beach, but as soon as you got up there, that was fighting everywhere you looked. That was machine guns and what have you, and we went into a little apple orchard and we dug foxholes and got in them. And the infantry and the Air Force was putting down such a barrage, and the Navy from out in the channel was just continually dropping shells 200 or 300 yards ahead of us. And that was just part of it. And those old hedgerows, and our outfit built the first hedgerow cutter. We took an old tank and cut railroad track and welded it on the front. And you could run into those hedgerows, and it was at an angle down, and it would tear into the roots of them, and that would kick that hedgerow out of the ground. The tank couldn't go through one of those hedgerows to start with. And you could hear the Germans talking on the other side of the hedgerows in places. We was that close. But main thing you did was try to keep your hides clean, where you wouldn't somebody shoot you. You'd hide every time you got a chance. But
did you actually have to do any fighting?
2 or 3 times we approached some pillboxes, and you couldn't get by them, where they had those slits on them, and they'd be shooting at you, and somebody would get some grenades, and you'd turn a machine gun on that slit, and they'd just crawl up there, and when the machine gun, at a signal, would quit firing, they'd just throw them over in there and duck. And of course, we lost quite a few men in different times.
Did you actually have to do any fighting?
Well, no more than anybody, You'd be shooting, you didn't know what you were shooting at, that kind of stuff. Now, I made a trip back to Paris one time on an assignment when the French were stealing our equipment. They were stealing us blind. A train would be parked in the yard, and a moving train would come in loaded with American equipment. That was after we went through Paris. And they'd stop it, and they'd throw stuff from one train to the other. And they sent a lieutenant and myself on detached service down there for 10 days. And we slept in the yard at night with black clothes on and climbed up on top of that sitting train that was sidetracked. And when they started throwing stuff from one train to the other, we had machine guns, and we just take it and turn wide open and just run them back and forth between the trains. And we don't know how many we killed, don't have the slightest idea in either one of us. But I know some of them got full of them 45 caliber bullets. And we left there and went back to Lyon and did the same thing, and didn't have any more trouble with the French stealing equipment.
Why were they stealing equipment?
They sell and use. They were stealing antifreeze and tires and that kind of stuff, which was scarce in France.
Yeah, but they were supposed to be allies, yes?
Yeah, but you got thugs everywhere.
You got thugs everywhere. You got bad apples everywhere. Okay.
Yeah.